Have you ever wondered who the first people to make it to America were? I'm Krutik, I'm a scientist, and in today's video, we go over the major migration events of the Pleistocene and the Holocene to the Americas. I hope you enjoy. For millennia, America stood as a world apart, a vast double continent untouched by human hands. The story of how our species first reached and populated this new world is one of humanity's greatest epics. A tale of survival against Ice Age behemoths, impassable glaciers, and unknown landscapes. For decades, we pieced together this story with scattered stone tools and ancient bones. Today, the field of ancient genomics allows us to read this history directly from the DNA of the first peoples and their descendants. So who were the first Americans? How and when did they arrive? And did they ever meet visitors from across the world's oceans? To find the first Americans, we must journey back to the last ice age. We're heading for the Last Glacial Maximum, the peak of this frozen age, which occurred between 26,500 and 19,000 years ago. At this time, so much of the world's water was locked in colossal ice sheets that the global ice levels were over 100 meters lower than they are today. This exposed a vast, now submerged landmass connecting Siberia to Alaska. This was not a narrow bridge, but a massive subcontinent called Beringia, stretching nearly 1,800 kilometers wide. For thousands of years, this area was the gateway between Siberia and America. The story of the first Americans begins with a people that populated the Siberian side of this gateway. Genetic analysis of ancient remains, such as a 31,000-year-old individual from the Yana River site, has identified a distinct Ice Age population we call ancient North Siberians. These were not yet the first Americans though. Around 23,000 years ago, a branch of the Siberian population began to mix with people from East Asia. This formed a new population scientists refer to as ancestral Native Americans. They were not yet in America, but they were the direct ancestors of the first groups who would eventually cross into the Americas. This founding population likely lived in isolation on the Beringian landmass, held in an evolutionary standstill by the impassable ice sheets to the east and the harsh Siberian climate to the west. When the ice sheets finally began to retreat, the gates to the New World truly opened. But the peopling of the Americas was not a single simple event. Ancient DNA reveals a complex history of multiple founding populations and splits. The first group to migrate west were known as the ancient Beringians. Genetically, they are a sister group to all other Native Americans. However, it seems their journey ended in the far north. No modern Native American group is a direct descendant of theirs, and the last known individual belonging to this lineage lived in Alaska around 9,000 years ago. They are a ghost population, a lost chapter in the story of the Americas. The second group, the one that would go on to populate the two continents, also split almost immediately into two major branches: Northern Native Americans and Southern Native Americans. The descendants of the Northern Native Americans would primarily populate the northern half of North America, whereas the descendants of the Southern Native American population would go on to populate the rest of America, all the way down to the tip of South America. This fundamental split occurred remarkably early, around 15,700 years ago, likely just as these populations were entering the Americas and moving down beneath the Great Ice Sheet. But the story of the South gets even more complex. Genetic analysis of a 12,600-year-old individual known as Ansnik I, associated with the Clovis culture, revealed there wasn't just one southern lineage. It showed another widespread ghost population, which scientists refer to as Population Y. The DNA of this mysterious Population Y is not found in North America, but is present in many indigenous peoples of Central and South America, especially in the Amazon. And interestingly, there is genetic linkage between Population Y and some isolated groups from the Old World, such as Aboriginal Australians. Give this video a thumbs up if you'd like to know more about that. This tells us that the settlement of South America was a dynamic process involving at least two distinct waves of people that later mixed, creating a deep and complex genetic tapestry that we see today. Here's an interesting question. How did these groups get past the ice sheets? For decades, it was assumed they traveled through an ice-free corridor that opened through the center of North America. But genetics and geology now points to a different, more daring route. It appears the first people migrated south along the Pacific coast, a route that would have been traversable as early as 17,000 years ago, long before the inland corridor was passable. This coastal journey allowed the southern Native American branch to rapidly extend south, reaching sites like Monteverde in Chile by an astonishing 14,600 years ago. We've just covered some of the major migration events of the Americas we know of during the Pleistocene. Now, let's move on to more recent times and go through what ancient DNA tells us about the Holocene. The end of the Ice Age did not end the story of the migration in the Americas. The Holocene, our present epoch, saw new waves of people arriving and new patterns of movement. Around 5,200 years ago, a new group of people known as the Paleo-Inuits crossed the Bering Sea from Siberia into the Arctic. Genetically, they were distinct from earlier Native American groups. This wave was eventually replaced by a second Arctic migration around 800 years ago by the ancestors of the modern-day Inuit Thule culture. DNA shows that these later arrivals did mix with some North Native American groups. Possibly the most famous sea voyagers to enter the Americas were the Norse, descendants of Vikings who settled in Greenland. They established a small outpost in Newfoundland around 1,000 years ago. While they certainly made contact with local Inuit and Native American populations, a comprehensive look into modern genomes reveals no evidence of them leaving a genetic legacy in America. We can contrast this with the story on the other side of the world. Another of history's great seafarers made contact with Native Americans. Genetic evidence from present-day indigenous people on several Polynesian islands, including Easter Island, Rapa Nui, show clear evidence of admixture with Native Americans. DNA from the Zenu people of Colombia has been found in the Pacific. This remarkable admixture event occurred in the 13th century and likely happened when Polynesian voyagers reached the coast of South America and returned to their home islands with Native American individuals, forever linking genomes of great travelers from the New World and the Old World. The peopling of the Americas is a testament to the human endurance and relentless drive to explore. It's a story of Ice Age hunter-gatherers traversing a new continent, of coastal navigators skirting massive glaciers, and of pioneering families spreading through two continents in a geological blink of an eye. I hope you enjoyed this journey through the genomic history of the Americas. Please like and subscribe for more stories on anthropology, genetics, and evolutionary biology. See you next time for more science.